It is my privilege and honor to introduce the president of the Kennedy Center, Deborah Rutter, Rose Kennedy Schlossberg, and Stephen Holl.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the national anthem.
Good morning, and thank you all. Deborah, before you leave, let me please ask you to say thank you to Deborah Nansteele and to Kevin Miller, who are members of the Washington National Opera's Young Artist Series. Thank you. I also want to recognize the Watkins Elementary Ensemble. For me to have young people be here and be a part of it, and to have them be able to participate in the national anthem, to participate in this program, and to offer that really beautiful song earlier means so much to me and is what we are here about. It's about young people and having opportunity to be participating in the arts. It is inspiring for us to have a little bit of music at the very beginning. This is just the beginning of a long history of great and inspiring music that will take place here on this South Campus of the Kennedy Center. Thank you all for being here today. It's a wonderful occasion. I look at my friends and colleagues here in this room, and I know that there are many of those also in our grand foyer, and also those of you following us online via a live webcast. So thank you so much for being a part of this historic occasion. This tent makes us feel like we're actually inside somewhere, but this is the only piece of soil that we had on this South Campus to actually have a groundbreaking. So we've built this around the very beautiful dirt here in order to have an occasion to mark the launch of this very important project. I have neglected to introduce myself. I'm Deborah Rutter, and I have the enormous privilege of being the president of the Kennedy Center. And although I've been here just a few short months, I'm inspired by the incredible legacy of the Kennedy Center and the limitless potential of its future. We are so honored to have so many here, and I understand that the Vice President will be with us very shortly. I want to while I say thank you to each of you, whether you are an audience member, an artist, a member of our public, a member of the staff who helped so many great things take place here, I want to say that this institution celebrates you every day, and you help fulfill the promise of bringing the arts to everybody in our country. If I may, he's glowering back there at me. I want to acknowledge our chairman, David Rubenstein. David is an amazing chairman. He is a patron and a friend to the Kennedy Center. He is a good friend, a partner, and a role model for me personally. David goes out of his way every single day, I think 23.5 hours of every day, to help us here at the Kennedy Center and all across this country. You can only talk about David in superlatives: the most generous, the most kind, funny, selfless, supportive. I know I speak for everyone in this room and around the country to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Our heartfelt appreciation to you, David, for what you do here at the Kennedy Center and for our country. President Kennedy said that he looked forward to an America which will not be afraid of grace and beauty, an America which will reward achievement in the arts as we reward achievement in business and statecraft. The Kennedy Center fulfills the dream that the arts be fully integrated into our national life and that cultural achievement be recognized as an integral part of the human experience. With more than 2,000 performances each year, the Kennedy Center is a dynamic place to experience a full range of performances and disciplines in the arts. There is something here for every person, every taste, and every age. That breadth of diversity is what makes the center as unique and robust as it is. Just as importantly, our education programs reach out beyond the center stages and tap into the next generations of arts patrons. They're right over there. The Kennedy Center allocates $15 million each year on arts education, and $1 million of that is dedicated to local school children. I'm really proud of that legacy, and I hope that the new space will actually accentuate that over time. Today, we break ground for an historic expansion of the Kennedy Center's facilities. This new space will be a place where the community can engage and interact with artists and their creative output in inspired and meaningful ways across the full spectrum of the creative process. It will also create a park-like setting for our southern exposure and provide a long overdue connection to the Potomac River and to our friends in Georgetown. It will, most importantly, bring us much closer, every day, much closer to realizing the mission of the Kennedy Center. That mission, to which we aspire every day, demands that the Kennedy Center be at the center of cultural life in our nation. It expects that we reach out as broadly and as deeply as we can to bring the very best of the arts to the citizens of this great country. And it compels us to honor the implicit joy that defines authentic art. In closing, there are so many people to recognize, but I think it's especially appropriate to recognize members of the Kennedy family. So I'd like to ask Vicki Kennedy, who is a member of the Board of Trustees and a deep and dear friend of mine and everybody at the Kennedy Center. Thank you for being here, Vicki. We're also really proud that Rose Kennedy Schlossberg could be here with us today. She is one of the newest members of the Board of Trustees, and already she's exhibiting great leadership, a dedication, and an understanding of what we're doing here. She has, in a very short time, impressed so many people here, and it's a pleasure to have her here to speak on behalf of the family and the president, her grandfather. So thank you, Rose, for being here.
Thank you, Deborah. I'm so glad to be here for my first honors weekend and for Deborah's inaugural honors as president of the Kennedy Center. Your commitment and passion for the performing arts has already enlivened our nation's symphonies and will certainly shape and guide the Kennedy Center in this expansion. I would also like to thank David Rubenstein for his leadership and devotion to this institution, which means so much to my family. Thanks are also due to the Board of Trustees for their generosity and oversight of this project. We are here to celebrate the expansion of the Kennedy Center from a performing arts stage to a place where new things can be dreamed up and practiced and perfected. This new building will provide much-needed rehearsal space for the artists who perform on the Kennedy Center stages. President Kennedy once said, when speaking of the poet Robert Frost, that the artist's working life is marked by intense application and intense discipline. My grandfather's profound understanding of the creative process is reflected in the construction of this building. Rehearsal space will encourage artists to take more risks and reach new heights. As a new member of the Kennedy Center's Board of Trustees, I look forward to seeing how this opportunity changes and deepens the work that is done here. My grandparents both cared deeply about the arts and truly believed in their power and in honoring and respecting our nation's artists. To quote President Kennedy again, "If art is to nourish the roots of our culture, society must set the artist free to follow his vision wherever it takes him." This building will provide a space for people to imagine and reimagine their work. It is an exciting demonstration of how institutions can support the artistic exploration that it takes to get to the polished end product. I thank you all for being here today, and I'm glad members of my family are here as well to continue to support the Kennedy Center as an extension and embodiment of my grandparents' vision for America. My grandparents believed that American civilization had come of age, and they transformed the White House into a stage for our nation's greatest performing artists. They recognized that in order to demonstrate our full commitment to freedom, democracy, and the human spirit, our nation's capital needed a world-class performing arts center. After my grandfather's death, my grandmother and my great aunts and uncles worked tirelessly to build and sustain this center, and my generation is proud to continue their commitment to excellence. The Kennedy Center and its performances of music, dance, and theater, and its education programming across the country does so much every day that we can be truly proud of. It is my privilege now to introduce the chairman of the Kennedy Center, David Rubenstein.
Thank you very much. You know you're getting old when people on the board in which you serve are the college classmates of your own children. So Rose was in my daughter's class at Harvard, and I'm very privileged to now be chairing a board in which she serves. And I want to thank you for your willingness to serve on the board and to represent your family. It is the National Cultural Center, but it's obviously named the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, in part because John Kennedy really had a large commitment to the performing arts, and the family felt that this would be an appropriate living memorial to him. And many members of the Kennedy family have really worked very hard to make this an appropriate living memorial. So Ted Kennedy, Senator Ted Kennedy, served for 40 years on the board of the Kennedy Center. President Kennedy's sister, Jean Kennedy Smith, served for, I think, 43 years on the board. And Vicki Kennedy now, as you know, is now serving on the board and chairing our Education Committee. And now Rose Kennedy is following her mother serving on the board. So I want to thank the Kennedy family for all that they have done to make sure that this is a living memorial that does great justice to what President Kennedy stood for. And obviously, Rose, you never met your grandfather, but I have no doubt that if he was looking down here today, as I'm sure he is, he'd be very proud of the granddaughter that you have become and everything that you represent for the family. So thank you very much for doing that. I also want to thank Deborah Rutter for the leadership she's already shown in just a few months here. She's made it clear that she's going to be a very effective leader. We had a terrific leader for 13 years, Michael Kaiser. He did wonderful things for the Kennedy Center, and I want to thank Michael publicly for everything he did to help get this ready to the point where we're going to have this edition, but Deborah has really jumped in and done terrific things for us. I can acknowledge everybody here and say everybody here deserves some special recognition. I really don't have time to do that. I would like to acknowledge one of my predecessors, Jim Johnson, who served as a chair and ably did so, and two people who served as acting chairs, Alma Powell and Elma Gildenhorn, are here. They did great jobs as leaders of the Kennedy Center, and we've had terrific leaders throughout the years of the Kennedy Center. You might say, why are we building a new building if the Kennedy Center is in such good shape as it really is? The Kennedy Center, I would say, really changed Washington. I wouldn't say it's fair to say it was a cultural wasteland before we had the Kennedy Center, but it wasn't in Washington a cultural mecca either. But after the Kennedy Center was built and opened in 1971, Washington's performing arts and cultural areas really grew, thriving around the Kennedy Center. And as a result, it really has become a mecca now for the performing arts, not just in Washington, but for most of the United States. Many people from the United States now come to Washington to see the Kennedy Center, to see events here, and we really lived up to the promise, I think, that the founders of the Kennedy Center had. So what do we need to do anything more? Or why do we need to build an addition? Well, everything needs to be refreshed a little bit. The Kennedy Center is more than 40 years old. We want to modernize it. We want to make it more accessible to people. We want to make sure that it's inviting to everybody to come, and we want to make sure we have young people coming as well and make them feel that they're welcome here. So many of the things that we have in this addition are going to do that. The decision to build a new addition was one that the Board of Trustees decided unanimously to pursue, but the question is, what are you supposed to do? What is it going to look like? And as you all may know, when buildings have been around a while, they become iconic. So the Kennedy Center, when it was first built, had some architectural critics who didn't think it was so wonderful. Now it's iconic. It's like the Eiffel Tower. When the Eiffel Tower was built, people didn't think it was so wonderful. Now it's iconic. So when you have an iconic building, you can't really change it dramatically, or you destroy the iconic image. So we decided to have a search committee, an architectural search committee, that would come up with an architect who had a design that wouldn't destroy the iconic image of this wonderful building, but also enable us to refresh the place, to modernize it, to open it up a bit. We considered some of the leading architects in the world, and we ultimately selected unanimously a person who had a vision that really made our breaths go away when we saw it. When we first saw the vision that the architect had that we selected, we said, well, this is beautiful, but can it be done? It's so different than what we would have expected. And in the end, we all came around unanimously to the view that this was the only vision that was appropriate to add to the Kennedy Center. And that vision was really won by Stephen Holl. Stephen Holl is an architect, but he's also an artist. And he's built some of the most wonderful buildings in the United States and around the world. He's won terrific awards. He's been regarded by Time magazine, said he was the best U.S. architect. He won a terrific award earlier this year in Japan, the Premium Imperial, which says he's one of the best architects in the world, and he clearly is. And he's put an enormous amount of time and energy into this effort, making certain that this vision that he has to create an addition to the Kennedy Center will fit within the iconic image of the Kennedy Center and do all the things that we wanted to do. And I really wanted to thank Stephen Holl and Chris McVoy for putting together the design and for enabling us to really feel very comfortable going forward. It does cost some money to do this, and we're very fortunate that we have largely raised the money to do this. And I want to thank Michael Nydorf, who's here, the chairman of our capital campaign, for twisting everybody's arms. And if your arms haven't been twisted yet, Michael will talk to you later today. But thank you, Michael, for everything you've done and your own generosity. And I want to thank everybody here who is committed to the capital campaign, because your generosity has made it possible for us to have this groundbreaking today. Now it's my honor to introduce the man who has designed this wonderful image you've seen, Stephen Holl.
It's a great honor to be here, and I have to say it's a great honor to be working with David Rubenstein. I'm very amazed that this process, since the competition announcement of our scheme winning, by the way, that same moment David announced I'm giving $50 million to this project, since that day, it's only been 2 years. And I'm very excited that this groundbreaking is happening now. And here you can see an image. Basically, you know, this is a living memorial to JFK. Unlike the Lincoln Memorial, which is a serene and beautiful place, or the Jefferson Memorial, these three memorials along the river, this is a living memorial. So what's really interesting is we're providing a lot of rehearsal spaces for this expansion. There are 3 pavilions bringing light and air down to everything that's below the grade. You can't really see the extent of it. It's all below the grade. So there's soaring spaces with light, all natural light. And that's going to be very important for the people that occupy it. There's access to the river for the first time. The first vision by Edward Durrell Stone had access to the building was on the river. But we're having a river pavilion that gives access for the whole public 365 days a year to the river. So this is going to be a very important place. Also, there's simulcasts, offering free simulcasts of the things that are going on in the center, on the back of that center pavilion there. That's going to be a wonderful place, free to the public. There's reflective spaces, gardens and pools, fountains, and there are 35 ginkgo trees for the 35th president, whose golden yellow leaves in that sacred month of November will be creating a kind of sacred grove. So for me, this is a work that's very important in my whole life, and I'm very, very thankful. But I have to say one more thing about David. You know, an architect, it's one thing to get support, but then you have to deal with the contractor, and the contractor brings you all these schedules, and then they talk about delays and, you know, increases and this and that. So David calls the contractor on the phone and says, this project will open on Kennedy's birthday, May 29th, 2017. That's really a dream client. Thank you.
Yes, we intend to open this with the grace of God on the 100th anniversary of President Kennedy's birth, May the 29th, 2017, and everybody is invited to that opening. President Kennedy inspired me to go into public service. Unfortunately, my career in public service wasn't so wonderful. I managed to get inflation to 19%. My administration wasn't reelected, so I had to go into the private sector. But many of you were no doubt inspired by President Kennedy to go into public service. And President Kennedy was a person whose entire life was public service. He really spent his entire adult career in public service, in the Navy, in the Congress, and in the executive branch. There's somebody else who was inspired by President Kennedy who's also done the same and given his entire life to public service. And that's our guest today, our special guest. He is in an entire career in public service as a senator and now as Vice President of the United States. And if there's anybody in Washington that typifies the kind of commitment to public service and a life of public service better than Joe Biden, I don't know who it is. So it's my great honor to introduce Joe Biden, Vice President of the United States.
David, I noticed you got no sympathy when you said you had to leave and go to public life. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to be here. Deborah, it's good to see you again, and Rose, it's an honor to be with you. And Stephen, I was eavesdropping, hearing you speak behind the door, and if anybody can get the contractors on time, I'm sure this guy can do it for you. Thank you for what you're doing. And Jim Johnson, wherever you are, I can't see in the light out here, but as a good friend, and David referenced him, has done a great job before David. And David, thank you for that introduction. You made an astounding, incredibly generous commitment to renew and revitalize this iconic institution. What's become over the last 50 years the cornerstone of American art and culture, the Kennedy Center. But those of you who know David are not surprised. Like so many important projects, it helped define us as a nation and reinforce our values, from restoring the iconic Washington Monument to fighting cancer to funding thousands of children in higher education to this center. Much in this town would not have happened recently, David, without you. So thank you very much for all you do. And I assure you, if you stayed in public life, you wouldn't be able to do it. So some of us are happy you didn't stay. 50 years ago this week, President Johnson broke ground to create a center to serve both as a National Arts Center and as a living memorial to a president who knew what, and I'm not even sure Richard Comler was alive at the time, but he wrote, "Art is our one true global language. It acknowledges no class. It speaks to our need to reveal, heal, and transform. It transcends ordinary lives, and it lets us imagine what is possible." Rose, that is what your grandfather did for so many of us, some in this room today. Let us imagine what was possible. Your grandfather, Rose, said, and I know you've heard this 1,000 times, that if art is to nourish the roots of our culture, society must set artist free to follow his vision wherever it takes him. David, the vision that you and the architect have come up with to expand and improve upon this great center, space for arts education programs and rehearsals, as well as interaction between artists and audiences. And as a matter of fact, as described to me, the public will literally be able to watch from outside what is happening inside. This new vision, in my view, is bound to inspire the imagination and creativity and awaken in scores of young people we've yet to come to know a yearning and a talent many of them do not even realize resides within them. I think what's going to happen here, I think it was Picasso who said that all children are artists. The problem is how to remain an artist when he grows up. I think that's what this is about. I think that what you're doing today will help solve that problem of keeping children or artists being able to grow up and remain artists. So on behalf of all those tens of thousands of children that are going to come and learn and be inspired by what you're about to do, we should say thank you. On behalf of all Americans, I want to thank all of you for keeping, revitalizing, and how can I say it, reimagining what this living monument can be. So on behalf of all Americans, thank you, David. Thank all of you who are making this possible. And may God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you.
We are going to have another little ceremony in the promenade for those who weren't here that go through a little more detail, and then others can listen to some other things that we have to say. But I want to thank the Vice President for coming this morning, and thank all of you for doing so. Thank you.